Hi, it's Hazel. Welcome to my channel. It is day 34 of the 100-day project. Now, I don't know if this strictly falls into a junk journal paper crafting project, but certainly, I guess it's my channel. I can do whatever I want. So if you saw a recent haul video, you probably, or you may have seen that I bought, you may have seen that I bought one of these Ikea storage little doohickeys that, in this case, it has 6 drawers. It was just kind of raw wood that had been kind of poorly varnished. And so I thought, well, I can do better than that. So what I did was go through my scrapbook papers and kind of look at something that was going to be, not ultra thin, not ultra thick and difficult to work with, and something that I would enjoy looking at day after day after day. So this is what I settled on. I like bright, vibrant colors. I do have a lot of orange, copper, purple, like aubergine type things in my house and in my studio. So this seemed like the perfect paper, and I had enough sheets to do it as well. So what I did last night was, first of all, using a sanding block, and it wasn't this one. This one is, anyway, it's just abrasive on this one side, and then this is spongy. I mean, we're all familiar, and I do have one, or several, more familiar with the ones that are about 3/4 of an inch thick. So what I did was, first of all, scuff up the front of the drawers to, roughen up that varnish surface, and, get it to the point where it would take glue better. A lot of the drawers are not the greatest inside. Like, they're either, marked up in some way, because obviously this has been used, and varnish dribbles and whatnot. So maybe I should have worked on the inside first, but I wanted the nice stuff done. So what I did was I used this Aleene's tacky glue. I think this stuff definitely has a place. It's pretty convenient that it stands up, and it, you can just basically plunk this down in here. It is very, very thick. So I ended up using one of these silicone, is it silicone? Spreaders. Oh, you can see it picked up all my sanding dust. Use this to spread. Now, I guess I don't need to belabor this, because I did leave one of the drawers undone. What I intended to do was to show you the last drawer, the gluing down process. Some of these, okay, like this one, this is the biggest drawer, and it, of course, by this time I was waiting for the Oilers and LA Kings game to start, and I was a little eager, and I lost track of how much time had actually been spent drying, and the blade on my knife had become a little dull because, of course, well, I'll show you. What I was doing was I would lay the drawer down, and using, can you see, using the wood, the edge of the drawer as a guide, I would just basically, run the knife flush against the side, Now that cut pretty darn nicely because I did, you know, break off a section and get a new sharp blade. But of course, a person doesn't realize you need to change the blade until after you've done some less than stellar cutting. Now, the trickiest part, of course, is this front of the top of the drawer, because that is where the little thumb hole is. So what I did was, I hope you can see, I kind of went along the side as far as I could reach in, cut basically like so, try to get into the curve there. And, you know, it does take a little bit of finessing because, of course, that's also where my tacky glue tended to, you know, if there was kind of some excess, that's where it seemed to squeeze out. Now, I cannot stress enough how important it is to to have the patience, and I know patience isn't something that a lot of us are really so good at, because we want things done and we want to see the results and we want it now. Just trying to get the bulk of that off. The reason I had kept this drawer handy is that I wanted to show you that cutting with a less than sharp knife meant that there was a little bit of, a little bit of tearing. Now, what I did with all of the drawer surfaces was basically, first of all, I was using this broken down, worn out emery board because it seemed like, oh, that would be handy for getting in there. There's almost no grit left on this, so that's another thing. Maybe use better tools. Basically, because I was working on this too soon, I ended up, and all through very skillful patching, you wouldn't probably have known that this corner ripped out. But I found the piece, I re-glued it, and of course I left it alone till like overnight. This drawer is also wider than a piece of paper, so I had to put in a patch. And again, this is neither here nor there probably for you because you're not using this paper, but I originally had this patch. Maybe you can see that that's where the seam is. I originally had this at this end, but it was such high contrast that it really looked like, look here, look here, look here. She did a patch. So I thought by putting it at this end, there was a less high contrast and less noticeable. So basically what I did, and you can see, tiny little things like that where, maybe that was overly vigorous sanding or whatever. When I'm done with this video, I will be giving all of these drawer fronts a coat of Liquitex matte medium. And that will serve to strengthen the paper and seal some of these things that are not quite perfect. I think that this paper choice was also a good one because there are elements of white in it, here and there. So if I've exposed some white here and there with sanding, it's it doesn't really matter. I also think that sanding to the point where it looks like, it makes it look like natural areas of wear. So I'm happy with my paper choice is basically what I'm trying to say. Okay, so this one you saw me trim around. So basically what I would do now is sand gently away from, like I wouldn't go this way because that would tend to, you know, lift up the paper, separate the paper, as opposed to, you can see that there are some little bits of glue. Again, you know, how much effort and time you might want to put into this is obviously a personal choice. That glue is not going to hurt one thing, or, I mean, it's not going to matter one way or the other. I guess I could do a bit more here. But again, it becomes kind of a judgment call. When do you leave well enough alone? When do you say, okay, that's good enough. If I keep putzing with this, it is going to make it worse, not better. So, as I said, the trickiest part is this thumb hole. Now, of course, when you start using, maybe I should try my scissors instead. When you start using a knife against plywood, it doesn't take long to dull your blade. So if you can do some of that without you know, without wrecking your blade, it would be a good thing too. So, I mean, I will continue working this a bit. I know it's probably an annoying sound. I will show you the how I did the gluing. And, oh, see, there's a big glue thing. Could probably be a bit closer here also. You know, again, it's personal, probably one's own traits. Whether you think, oh, good enough, or whether you keep picking at it until you take it to the to the point of no return. And maybe I should stop there. Okay, what I'll do is shake some of this off into the garbage. Make myself a little more room here. Oops. And glue the last one down. Okay, so let's make sure that you can see. Now there is some script on here, so it's a matter of making sure that, you know, it's right side up, since every other piece is. Now, basically what I had done is I had my piece of paper on the desk, and then I roughly traced around it. Not exactly, because, of course, that's just inviting some kind of problem. But not a great deal of waste either. Now, I suppose with this choice of glue, which I've already said was Aileen's tacky glue, I could have maybe been a little more accurate in my cutting, because there would have still been some give. Oh, and I did dust off, like after the initial sanding, I did dust off the loose debris. So I find this glue very, very, very thick, and kind of, you know, really a little annoying in that You know, you have to squeeze like heck to get it out. Basically, what I did was try to put a good bead of glue kind of all around. And, you know, obviously cover the whole surface. But because it's so thick, okay, can't have everything. I thought it would be a good choice because it's so thick, it's not going to, I didn't think it would really warp the paper because, you know, too wet, you end up with an issue. You end up with warping. So then I wanted, even though it's kind of, you know, lighter weight cardstock, I did want it to, I couldn't obviously slap it down with these ridges and blobs of glue. So I just tried to do my best, spreading this out, evening it out, trying to make, you know, get it close to the edges because that's really important that you get good grip there. And then smooth it out so that, you know, there would be no uneven you know, where there'd be blobs of glue in some places and maybe other areas that hadn't gotten any. Luckily, even though it takes a little bit of time to do this, I didn't seem to have any problem with the glue, you know, beginning to dry and not grabbing the paper. So I think that's probably as good as this is going to get. Top side up. Font facing in the right direction. Now what I could do is, you know, line it up with one end. Maybe I like more of the purple, so I'm going to make it flush here. And not quite, okay, so that, I probably hadn't cut that very straight. Where's my card? And then I just basically, you know, pressed it out, trying to make really good contact. Now I have a, well, I guess essentially this is decoupage. I have done this sort of thing before. I had a nice wooden box with a cover that I ended up covering with atlas pages. This is a few years ago. It clearly is easier to do something like this. Oh, and then I turned it upside down to help, you know, to help provide some, to help it adhere. Oh, I was saying clearly it is easier to do this sort of stuff on pieces that are pretty flat and straight and not too ornate. Like, you can't get much simpler than a rectangular box. The only thing that would have made this easier is no thumb hole, but it would be kind of, then you'd need to add knobs or something to be able to use it. So I am going to quit here because I learned my lesson. I'm going to let this dry for a few hours before I try trimming. In the meantime, I may just decide to give all the other pieces their first coat of matte medium. And yeah, I hope that if you have something that is maybe a little unsightly or something that would benefit from, you know, a splash of color, a little extra resilience that would help prettify your studio space, your art space, then I hope you tackle the project, because it is pretty gratifying and it's not that much work, especially if you're watching the NHL playoffs. I do have a couple, just as I'm looking around my room here, I do have a couple more things that I could tackle, but I think for now I'm going to call this done and plan my next day. Okay, what did I say this was? Day 34. So let's get day 35 in the can, so to speak. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and happy crafting, guys.